it's great to practice reading aloud. And I'm a big fan of audio visual feedback. By that, I mean audio recording yourself, playing it back to hear how you sounded, hear your tone, hear if you mumbled or stumbled wherever. And the visual feedback, looking in the mirror as well while you're recording yourself.
Yes. Watching your facial expressions while you're doing it. And I think once you understand your communication style, I think that will help better relationships. And the thing is, people don't like conflict, but you have to have conflict in order for things to be resolved.
What's up, family? It is Justin here with Tech Journey. Have a special episode for you today. So something that I've discovered since I have been in business development is tonality is critical. Did not realize it to the point that I do now, but I want to have a conversation on it just for in general, for life, for relationships, for business, for your profession. So I had to bring two friends on who know way more about tonality than I do. One of them is my good friend for over a decade now. All right. So we got Taylor Shea with us, who in May this year of 2023 is going to have her Master's of Science in Speech Language Pathology with honors in history. And now I have a more recent friend that I was able to meet through Taylor Shea, Desiree, who is also going to have her Master's of Science in Speech Language Pathology. So without further ado, Tech Journey, let's dive straight into this conversation. Ladies, what's up? How y'all feeling today?
Good. Thanks for having us.
For having us. So excited to be here.
Absolutely.
So glad to have y'all on. So listen, we're going to jump straight into the first question of this conversation. So I want to ask you, how important is tonality and what role does tonality play in our everyday lives? And even if you want to just give like a little quick reference of definition of like what exactly is tonality, what do we mean by that? Please do share.
Yeah, so tonality itself, to put it long story short, it's like your mom used to always tell you when you grow up. It's not what you say, but it's how you say it. It's the personality of our words. It's the tone. It's the emotion of our words. So it evokes a signal that transcends what our words are actually saying.
Yeah, it's all about your inflections, really. It's about like the rise and the fall, kind of how I'm saying it right now, about how you say things. And it's very important in our everyday lives. I don't think people really realize that we use tonality on an everyday basis. They use it with people, like with the kids, with their husbands and wives, with their teachers, with their bosses every day. So it actually is an important aspect in our everyday life.
Yeah, and tonality itself actually falls under a larger umbrella called prosody. And so prosody refers to our intonation, our stress patterns, our loudness variations, our rhythm, and our pausing. So it's like the musicality of speech. And tonality itself can actually lead to communication breakdowns if the message that you're trying to send is misinterpreted because of your tonality. And that's where we come in to kind of fix those breakdowns as they occur.
I agree. So even like when doing a text message, that's why I tend to use emojis a lot in my text messages, because if you're trying to send something, it can be misconstrued. So I try to send a certain smiley face to show them that I'm actually being sincere in what I'm saying, or not coming off as being rude or abrasive. And I was actually reading something or watching something today, and the person was saying that tonality is basically about your nonverbal communication. Again, it's all about your facial expressions meeting your voice. And even our clinical instructor that Desiree actually had last semester, and actually I have her this semester, she says you always want to match your facial expressions with your voice or your tonality or your prosody. And if you can do that, then it'll convey a deeper message. You don't always want to, so if you're trying to be genuine about something, you want to match your face with your voice. But if you're coming abrasive, it's gonna be like, wow, like your face and your voice are not matching. Of course, if you want to be really sincere, or you want to come off as being really, like really true in a way, again, match your facial expressions with your voice, because your nonverbal communication is just as important. Your gestures are just as important as your spoken communication.
Wow.
Because people
fix your face.
Yeah, fix your face. People say, "Oh yeah, I put all my emotions on my face," and that's true, because we do that because we're human. We have to sometimes to kind of mask that emotion, and if you can mask that emotion or try to master that, you're able to, I think, master that tonality. And it's funny because even if you kind of if you can hear my voice right now, I use a lot of inflections in my voice. I tend to even raise my eyebrows a little bit to kind of give you a little bit of that spontaneity, or just kind of give you that little or hey, ooh, to kind of bring a little bit of that funness to the conversation. But if I'm being really serious, you're going to see that my voice is now changed, and my eyes are really kind of more piercing, and I'm
Whoa.
direct with you because I want to show you that I'm serious in my conversation. Just kind of being, direct with your sales. You want to kind of bring in that eyebrow raise. You kind of want to be more direct in your pitch. But now you're going to bring it back a little bit and kind of just relax yourself and bring in a smile. It's all about how you present yourself. It's all about how you are talking to your person. And again, I was watching something today. It's about 4 seconds. Literally, the person had 4 seconds to really just sell yourself to somebody, especially in the business world. 4 seconds. You want to be enthusiastic. You want to show that you're an expert, and basically, you just want to sell yourself. So you have 4 seconds to do all of that. So.
That is very interesting that you say that, because so I make probably about anywhere from 80 to 180 calls a day. And I'm able to look at the computer screen and I can see the timer from the time the call starts. And usually my opening intro is out 4 seconds to the T. Like every time my opening intro is out in 4 seconds. So, and I mean, and it's refreshing hearing you say that as someone who, like, y'all specialize in this, right? Because one thing that I like to do is be very expressive and let my face freely flow, even my arm gestures, although the person can't see me. So I'm talking over the phone, but like I move a lot when I'm talking. If someone says something that, I don't know, catches me by surprise, or if I say something, I'm like, I shouldn't have said that, I'll like lean forward very intensely. I'll make like this interesting face to myself, even though like no one is in the room to actually see me. But I feel like it allows me to flow just more freely in what I'm actually trying to convey.
Right.
That makes a lot of sense. So I take it that the fact that, so for me, I'm like, okay, tonality is important. It's something that I want to discover more. Y'all took it a different step. Y'all are like, tonality is important. I want to go to school for some years and get a master's in speech language pathology. At what point in y'all's life, like, how did that come about? How did you come to the conclusion that I want to go get a master's in speech language pathology? Just curious.
Okay, I'll go. We were both like, oh, who's going first? It was quite a long journey for me. I know it's been a long journey for Taylor too, so we are similar in that aspect. When I first started at college, I probably changed my major, God knows how many times. I just couldn't make up my mind. I liked everything. I wanted to be a doctor, a lawyer, a nurse, a this, a that, a famous singer, you name it. And then I just kind of ended up in a position where I really didn't know what I wanted to do. So I took time off of school. And my oldest niece, I have 8 nieces and nephews. My oldest one, she went through speech therapy quite a few years, developmentally. And then my grandfather, who's now passed, he had Parkinson's disease. And so I saw a pediatric aspect of speech therapy. And then I saw what the speech therapist did with my grandfather. And I was like, wow, this is kind of interesting. And I consulted my family and I think I was a nursing major at the time, which I'm super squeamish. Like that would not have been for me. And so I consulted my counselor at the time at UCF at the University of Central Florida, and she was like, "Do it. I think you should do it." I did, and when I finally made that switch, I never looked back. It's been a really beautiful
Wow.
experience.
Wow. Yeah. And the fact that you've seen the hands-on application and how it can transform a life, right? It can take a person from one place and bring them to a destination that they could not have gotten to without professional, methodical intervention.
Right.
So that's
Intervention is the word that it is.
wow. Taylor Shay, what about you? How you got into it?
Basically the same path as my girl D. I actually was involved in speech therapy when I was younger for articulation and for language. So I did it for about maybe like a year. I couldn't say certain sounds, and then
Hmm.
I had a little bit of comprehension issues, which I still kind of have today. So it takes me a minute to kind of just understand certain things. So if I ask people to repeat some things, it's not to say, oh, she's not paying attention. It's more so just how my brain processes information. And that doesn't mean like I'm like dumb or anything. It just means that I just have it takes me a minute to kind of process information, which it's okay because people's brains just process differently. And so I did that to kind of help with me to understand different strategies. But then I forgot I literally took speech therapy. And so then I was like, I want to become a doctor. I was like, no, I want to be on Broadway because I love theater. If you know me, I'm a
Yes.
huge theater person. I love theater. That's like my jam. And my dad was like, you can't do theater because that ain't gonna bring you no type of money. So I was like, but I'm good at it. And he was like, no. So the next thing I was like, well, fine, I'll just become a doctor. Mind you, apparently biology was just not rolling for me, and I was just failing basically a lot of my classes. But I was like, I'm not gonna quit because I'm not a quitter. And towards the end of my senior year in Xavier, apparently that was just not cutting out for me. So I had to switch.
Wow.
Or they could kick me out. I just kicked myself out. And my family was like, all right, like you figure out like what you want to do because right now you're at this crossroads. And I was like, all right, well, I don't know what I want to do. They're like, well, you have like 3 months to decide what you want to do because either you pick something or we're gonna pick it for you. And I was like, well, I don't want to leave Xavier because I feel like I need to like stay here. And they're like, well, you could do music therapy. We're gonna get over your fear of like auditioning for stuff. And I was like, Xavier don't have music therapy. And finally, I was like, I can do history, but I don't want to be a history teacher because I love it. But they're like, well, what about speech therapy? So I looked into speech therapy. I was like, okay, I can kind of incorporate my love of theater into this and just kind of dive into that more. Then a scholarship, I was like, cool, I can get money for this, bet. So I took a few courses and I fell in love with it. And I realized I can incorporate the things that I love to do. And after graduation, I taught for a few years and it took me about almost 8 years to get back into grad school. But hey, we're here. A decade later, your girl will be graduating. I'm so excited. But I've been
Wow.
gay for like 5 years. I've been in the school system. So I've learned like the pediatric side of things of it. And I'm kind of learning about the adult side of things. And I love the adult side because that to me is so interesting. I mean, I love my kiddos, but I think the adult side is so interesting of just learning about the swallowing and the voice and the cognition. Of course, the kids is still important too because there's different sides of the pediatrics about cleft palates and about the feeding aspects of things and about just the different disorders. But
Mm.
that's how I got into it, and I'm loving it. And I never thought I would ever be here or really fall in love with it. But yeah, I can incorporate the things that I was passionate about as a kid, and I can incorporate that into what I'm doing now, especially with just like tonality and just being able, especially with cognition. I think that's the biggest thing. I think you're able to use a lot of like the music part to it. I think you can use that with a lot of your patients because that helps with the brain. I think that helps bring a lot of memory back
Hmm.
to your patients. So it's a win-win situation. So yeah.
So, for one, I do thank you for bringing up that we all learn in different ways. Not that I felt bad about it, but yeah, it takes me a while to catch on to things as well. Taylor Shea. Sometimes I'm like talking to a Tia and she'll say certain words and I'm like, what does that mean? She's like, you've never heard that word before? I'm like, actually, I have not. I've never heard it a day in my life. So anyway, yeah, that's funny. Like my wife and for people who've been, a part of the tech community, they like know, even when we were like entered into the tech space, I took like this whole extensive course careers, like from start date to graduation, 40 days I'm in it. And then I still didn't get a job offer until like a month after I like graduated. And Atia like took probably a week and a half for this course, started applying to jobs and had 4 job offers like 3 weeks later and never finished the course and got a higher paying job than me. So yeah, she catches on to stuff like way faster than me. So just a sidebar. That's funny. I appreciate that. Now, I don't even know how to like phrase what I want to ask because I forgot the word that Desiree mentioned. What's that word you said that's an
Prosody.
umbrella? Huh?
Prosody.
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 So prosody. So it seems like with prosody, and I'm assuming that correlates with when Taylor brought up touching more on the music side, you feel like that triggers something in someone to be able to comprehend or learn something because it brings back memories, right? So that's amazing because y'all are more into the actual science or breakdown of what will provoke or invoke a person to comprehend something when you're conveying something to them. Like I think that's so powerful because in my role, I'm doing well in my role. And one of the biggest contributions I really give to that is tonality. Like, because you can give somebody a script, oh, say this, say that. But then, Desiree, you said something else with the prosody. Prosody? You said something else with that where, and I'm probably saying it, butchering it, but you were more so referring into almost like the motives or what causes the tonality to come out in the way that it comes out. So another thing that I'm big on is being mindful of what is my actual agenda when I'm on the phone with someone, right? So and that connect, and I know it connects to my tonality because I make sure that mentally my agenda is not so much to sell them. My agenda is to listen for an actual problem they have that I can solve, listen to see if there's an area that I can help them gain. And if I truly believe that I cannot solve a problem for them, then I look to not even worry about going forward into the sales call because my heart is I got to be able to solve a problem. And so that comes out. So now when I'm on the phone with somebody and they really do got a problem that I can solve, I'm like in my tonality, I'm so kind and I'm so concerned that I think in their mind, they don't even view it as it's a sales thing. They're like, yeah, I need that. They're like, yeah, book the appointment, like sign me up to talk to whoever I need to talk to. So and really, and I contributed to my motive and my tonality. It's not really about having the script. It's the person feeling my heart just in that brief time of meeting them. So now my question to y'all is, and you can give like a story, a scenario, a life example, however you want to relay it. But how important is tonality when it comes to relationships? So in general, whatever you want to touch on, whether it's a parent to a child, if you're dating someone, married, like really, like what kind of ramifications can really come into place if a person just understood and learned to focus on motives and tonality?
That's good.
That's a great question. And actually, tonality has gotten me in trouble numerous times throughout, personal relationships my whole life. Growing up, I used to get in so much trouble. Like I said, my mom would always tell me, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Like I just apparently had this attitude that would come off and I didn't intend it to be that way. And it took me a long time to understand that you're evoking a message that can be aggressive, or it can be not what you're trying to intend, but the message get misconstrued. I would always ask, well, why are you upset? I only said this, but it was perceived a completely different way. And even in relationships, as I started to navigate dating in my early 20s, being Hispanic, I'm Puerto Rican, like we can really, our tone can really change a lot. And so I ended up finding myself in trouble in a lot of relationships, and arguments would happen unnecessarily because the message that I was trying to give was misconstrued. A lot of times it would be perceived as if I was angry or upset, but really I was just like passionate about what I was saying. But that can lead to confusion and arguments and
Wow.
breakups sometimes, depending on what the situation is. A message can really get completely misconstrued through the grapevine. Politicians, how many times do politicians give speeches and one person gets one message from it, someone gets something else. So it can really
Wow.
take your message on a different path depending on your tone.
That is so good.
That's good. That's good,
That
Dee.
you are like, y'all's profession is needed, y'all. I mean, seriously, like, I'm thinking about like marriage. I mean, y'all,
Yeah.
I'm telling y'all, it's times where I would listen to a person's situation, like conflict in someone's marriage, and I'm listening, I'm looking at both of them, and I'm like, but both of y'all are like good people in my head, right? I'm like, why can't y'all like, what's going on? But it's communication. It's like, well, I
Mhm.
don't like the way this came across, but in my mind, I'm like, but I know that person seems to have like a really good heart, right? It's kind of like in my marriage. If I get mad at a Tia, and I'm not saying this to like for brownie points, seriously, like I'm wrong pretty much like every time. Like I am. I mean, like, and I walk away angry, but then it's like when I think about it, I'm like, man, Atia is like one of the sweetest people like on earth, right? So I'm like, J War, you gotta be missing it. Like you gotta be misinterpreting what's happening here. Like, dude, she don't mean evil towards you, obviously, right? So I'm like, okay. So, but it's just, but that is so profound. And basically what I'm picking up from talking to y'all, because I brought y'all on the show because y'all specialize in this area, that people can be taught this. Like
Mhm.
people can be coached into this.
Absolutely.
It's just like if you need to learn anything, right? If I need to learn how to work on a car, okay, go get a manual, go watch a YouTube video, and then I can go from not knowing how to work on a car to knowing how to work on the car. Same way with communication. I can go from screwing my communication up to my partner or to my friend or to my child to, hey, you know what? Maybe I should like get into some research on this and just figure out how to make it better. So I mean, I think that's awesome. Tave,
I
if you want to say anything on that same question, feel free
I
to go
I
ahead.
did. Recently I've been really into understanding my personality. And I think if you understand your personality, I think it'll help you better understand your communication style. Um, for example, I am an ENFJ, a part which is like the 16 personality traits. And actually, our teacher, she made us do our first semester. She made us do a little reflection about our personality traits.
Mhm.
Our first semester, and that really helped. At first, I was like, "Why am I doing this?" But now that I look back on it, I'm so thankful because in the last 6 to 8 months, I've really have been going back to that reflection and just kind of deep diving more into it. And I'm really understanding my relationships and my communication style, not only just in just friendships, but also in the work relationships. I've been able to
Mm,
kind of say, okay, how do I portray myself in communication styles with people that I work with and people that I'm friends with and in my families, and that's helped me kind of just put a different perspective on just things in general, and it's helped me just kind of try to become a better person,
mm,
because we all have faults, and we're not always the best communicators. even though we try to pride ourselves on being the best communicator, if we're not always the best at communicating. I always say I'm a pretty good communicator, but I know I'm not always always amazing at it.
You're pretty good every time I've talked to you, but continue.
I mean, thank you. But I know I have some things I could do better on. But I know I'm a big on communication. I really am. But at the same time, I know on my end I could do better, if that makes sense. So it's like just learning about my strengths and my weaknesses. And once I know my strengths and my weaknesses, I can better perfect my weaknesses. Like, okay, Taylor, so this is what you are. You're people oriented, but you tend to also kind of mask certain things. So maybe you could do better on this aspect. And then that way you can better portray yourself in this area that could help you better in your work relationships. I was like, okay, or even in your friendships, or even in your relationships. Or this is why you did this, and this is why this relationship did this. Or sometimes you can tend to not over. Sometimes you can think you don't always think about certain things because you're always so passionate, but then you don't think about the outcome, and then you put yourself in certain positions that can get you into trouble. And I was like, oh. Okay, well that makes sense, and it's not because I'm like I have like any ill will towards people, just because I have a big heart, but then my big heart can also put me in a position that may not be the best, and I've had to learn that recently, and I'm glad for those situations because it's helped me understand my communication style. And again, it's not a bad thing, but it's something that I've had to understand. And I think once you understand your communication style, I think that will help better relationships. And the thing is, people don't like conflict, but you have to have conflict in order for things to be resolved. Like you can't just like sweep things under the rug. Like communication is a two-way street. Like that's the first thing that we learn in our undergrad courses. What is communication? It's a dialogue. It's a talking through. Like it's a conversation between two things. It could be with symbols. It could be with like any type of thing. But it's a conversation really. And the thing is, you have to have an open conversation. And if you're not willing to have an open conversation or just even have that open type of dialogue or that conflict, then how can anything be resolved? Even in a work relationship, even in a like a friendship, like you have to have that. And that's how things can only grow. If you want to see a business grow, or if you want to see a company grow, if you want to see anything grow, you have to have those hard conversations. But I think when you have that open communication, you're going to see things grow for the better, and things are going to be healthier. But if you don't kind of nip it in the bud at the beginning and get to the root of things, then nothing's gonna grow. It's like pruning. It's like gardening. Garden. I suck at gardening, but I've heard a lot of gardening. I know a lot of people that garden. You gotta prune it. You gotta get to the root of it. And a lot of times is communication. So how can we get to the root? Figure out the communication.
Wow. So as you were talking, I thought about unity versus conformity. And from listening to you, if I'm in a relationship with someone, whether it's in the workspace or in the home, whether I am the person who does not like conflict, so therefore I choose to keep my disagreements to myself, or I choose to keep my reservations to myself, or if I'm on the other end and I don't like conflict, but I would just rather it be my way, and I don't really care like what you think is the right way. That leads to conformity from one end. It's not unity, right? I can look at it as, well, I'm just keeping peace. I'm not going to say anything so that we can be in unity. But really there's an aspect of me that's dying. I am not being the person that I truly am. Therefore, I cannot become the person who I'm supposed to be. Yeah. And I think that unity and conformity are two different things, and they can be quite confusing, But I believe that unity is the ability to know that there is disagreement, to know that there is reservation in a relationship, but you can consult and talk through that and still come to a level of unifying with knowing that y'all have two different views, because it could be the two views that brings more of a perspective of benefit. So no, that's good. My guess would be the average person would rather conform than unify. That
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
would be my guess.
Yeah. Especially in today's day and age, I would agree.
They just rather just fly. They just rather just like flee the situation because they don't want to. They don't want to have the conflict. And I get it. Like I don't like conflict. I hate conflict. But I've realized at this day and age, we're getting older. You know, in order for things to be resolved, especially if you're in a business situation and it's like you have a partnership with somebody and you're trying to see something grow and mature, and even in a group projects for like school or whatever, you're trying to get an A on a project, and like you just see somebody just not pulling their weight. Instead of just talking behind their back or whatever, you have to like talk to the person, because if not, nothing's going to come about it. Like you're having conformity versus unity, and you're going to see the disunity in the project and also in the group, because you're not communicating with the person. Like
Wow.
the business is going to fall because there's this unity. Where like when like you like when there's this unity, you're gonna see the crack in the foundation. It's
You're
all
right.
to communication. Communication is foundation of a lot of things, and it's all
Wow.
about, as going back to the beginning, it's not about what you say, it's about how you say it. A lot of friendships end because of how people say things, not what they say, but how they say it. All about that tonality. Again, going back to the nonverbal communication, people don't think that your body language. I think about Ursula, about the body language, like the song, the Poor Fortunate Souls song. But body language is very important. You go like the body language is very important in tonality and communication. You could be like the most like sweet person, but your body language could be giving something completely different. If I'm just talking to you right now, you may think that, man, she's so stoic, she don't mean nothing at all. But now that I'm talking like this, you could think, oh my gosh, she's the best
Wow.
in the world. But I'm going back like this, and you think that
Wow.
she's nothing. Like I'm just so you know. But
Wow.
but again, the facial expression has to match.
Yeah.
Like has to match that. What do you think, Dee?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think kind of in that same vein of unity, in this day and age, a lot of injustices have happened. And so we're getting these outcries for social justice. And in this effort, in this call for unity, I actually think the opposite is happening because of the way these messages are getting portrayed.
Yeah.
There's a
Wow.
lot of breakdowns in the communication. I don't know if you ever go on social media and you see the comments. People are wild in the comments. Someone says something and they display their opinion, and someone else comes like, rah, 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 rah. No, 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 no. It's not this. But really, we all have the same goal, right? We all want to respect each other and love each other. We want everyone to be, treated equally. But in the effort, in the journey towards that, there's a lot of breakdowns happening, all because of the way that we're communicating these messages.
Yes.
Wow.
And even cultural competency is so important. That's something that we're learning about. Cultural competency, cultural humility, like diversity, equality, all that is important, especially with communication. Oh my gosh, you have to be able to display that, because everything is so sensitive nowadays, and you have to be able to display that through your communication, because you're going to meet people from different backgrounds, from different ethnic groups, from different places, and you have to be able to display that compassion through your communication, because you're going to meet somebody that is interested in your business or whatever it is that you're doing, and that's not going to be like you. You have to be willing and be open to listen to what they're saying, and you can't come off as like like
Right.
can come off like that. No, like you can't. 90-day society, boo boo. Not
Right.
you have to be willingly open. And one thing we had to take, we had to take a cultural, and I appreciate this class, I really do. We had to do a what was it, a cultural, what was it, a cultural competency survey.
Oh yes, yeah, we did that at
Yeah,
the beginning of the
we had,
semester. That
we
was
had
actually really interesting.
yeah, we had to do a cultural competency survey, and I was like, dang, Taylor, like even I could be more
Mm,
cultural competency. I could be more. I could do better with that. And I thought,
mm,
I kind of prided myself, and I was like, I'm pretty well aware of people's backgrounds and ethics and just diversity. I could do better, especially in the field of healthcare, and especially just being in the business world. I don't think people are as diverse as I think they are.
Right.
I don't think they are. And having to do those surveys, I was like, oh my gosh. It was such a huge
wow.
reflection. I really had to like look at it, and it really made me think about a lot of things. And being in the the healthcare field, we meet different people from different backgrounds, and we have to be mindful of different people from different cultures, and we have to be careful, like to hey like we have to respect where they come from, and we're mindful of certain tests that we administer, be mindful
Mm,
of things that we have to give them, like for certain foods, be mindful of certain things that we ask them, because we don't want to be disrespectful to them. And even like if it's our like business wise, we have to be careful of like certain things that we say, the times that we call them, the times that we, because it could be times that may be praying, the times that may be like with their families, or like just things like that. Just being mindful of their culture, being aware. It's just
wow.
aware, and just being just equality in general. And that's something that I have to even dig deeper on, and that is so important. And I think nowadays, I know people don't like to think that, but I think that's a part of communication, that's a part of tonality, because you have to be compassionate, especially nowadays, especially if you want to see things kind of, if you want to see that unity aspect.
Yeah.
If you want people to basically agree with you, or if you want to see that for yourself, you have to be willing to give that out too. It's a communication, it's a two-way street.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. One of the most powerful books I've ever read in my life is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And that book revolutionized my life. So now, yeah, y'all just kind of like jacked my head up a little bit with
Sorry.
cultural
Sorry.
Sorry.
competency.
What we
Like,
do.
yeah, like as y'all are talking, I'm like,
No,
oh
like
crap!
this
Like I don't know if I'm that culturally competent. How would a person
this last
explore
semester,
this and learn it? I
this
mean,
last semester really got us. It really did. This last semester, I think, really tripped us out too. It really did. It did.
Oh
so
yeah.
like, what is there a direction that y'all could like point a person into? And it's a twofold question, because my last question is, how does a person practically begin to work on tonality? But now y'all threw a curveball at me with the cultural competency, and I kind of did know this for myself. Like, where does a person begin with discovering like how to learn different cultures and become mindful of how they communicate with, like you said, bringing up the foods and the way you say something, the time that you call them, how you word it. Just where do we begin, Desiree and Taylor?
I'll let Desiree take this one. I'll let you start off, D.
um, ask that one more time, Justin.
Yeah, so we're listening to this and we are like, okay, I need to work on my tonality. I want to start doing some research on improving, how I can make my tonality more effective to convey what it is that I am intending to convey, or even have my intentions challenged to make sure my intentions become aligned with what I need to convey. And I'm like, whoa, okay, I'm in business. So like I'm in business. Like we have the tech journey, and my wife and I are in business development. Like that's what we do. We talk to like business owners and people in certain companies like every single day. How can I begin to become more culturally aware? What advice or recommendation would you throw out as a starting point to begin to become more culturally aware and to begin to explore how I can improve my tonality?
Yeah. So, from a business perspective, like if you're a consultant, for example, you want to be able to build solid relationships and establish kind of a level of trust between yourself and your client, right? So, obviously, we're a melting pot. Not all of your clients are going to be from the same culture. So, I think a good way to start is to establish your client base. If you're trying to expand, go international, for example, like Asian cultures. May not be as big with eye contact. I would say start by reading and researching specific cultures that you may come across, or maybe cultures that you may want to do business with. Let's say you're interested in doing business in Southeast Asia, then it might benefit you to do some research on how they communicate, what is considered a level of respect and what's considered a level of disrespect. Some cultures, only the man is allowed to speak. And in some cultures, like I said, the eye contact isn't as well received. So I think starting there is a great place to start, and evaluating what kind of voice you want your brand to have. I know a lot of companies, business is not our major, but corporate branding is something that I've heard along the business aspect.
Oh, you're explaining well.
Every company, right, you have a brand, and maybe you can extend your idea of that corporate brand to include your tone of voice. You can take some time to create like a distinctive style for all the communication that you give. Look at your advertising, your press releases, your marketing, because tonality is also included in written language. Anything you can get your hands on, and work out what tone of voice your organization is going for, and then try to emulate that in everything you do. And I think it's also okay to ask questions. If you're dealing with someone who's of a different culture, and if they say something you don't understand, ask them to explain. You can kind of challenge the status quo and be brave. If it doesn't make sense to you, ask for clarification.
Wow. Excellent. Well said. This is valuable. Y'all are like giving me like thumbnail ideas too as you're talking, Desiree. Like that was so powerful. I'm like, yeah, I got to make the thumbnail right.
That was good. Because I think if you ask them questions, they're gonna be like, wow, they actually want to know more.
Right.
That it's gonna make them feel okay. I can feel more comfortable with this person, so I can let loose more. I can okay, they're the person that I can trust. They're person that I feel like they're actually seem worthy of my time. So because they actually want to know more about me, I will give them more of my time. That's the biggest.
Absolutely.
That's the biggest thing, is because the fact that you are investing in them now, they will invest in you. And again, it's like a turnaround. It's like a revolving door. That's the biggest thing that you really want to see. But I agree with really with everything Desiree said. Is like, just find like the tone of what your brand of what you want it to be. Just ask questions, just do the research, but like each culture is different. So if you're not too sure or too familiar, just do your research. Ask questions. If you have friends that are of a different background or ethnicity, just ask them certain things like, hey, what is this, or I'm not too familiar with this, and don't be afraid to ask, because there are some things that we don't know. We do have friends that are different backgrounds and ethnicities, and I'm gonna start asking more questions.
Yeah.
I want to know more,
Yeah.
because I don't know. And the more that I'm learning, I'm like, okay, that makes more sense, especially in the business world, because you're going to different people that will have that do business differently than you do, or in the healthcare, or just like even education, like just like in any type of field, they're going to be different. And Desiree said, like, you may have people that that it may be some like the male may be more of the spokesperson, or eye contact. You may not really be able to like talk to children more. Like you may not be able to like just like patting on the head, like for some children, like really like a big like that's actually more disrespectful to the child versus it is
Yeah.
in that culture versus it is in America. So it's just being mindful about that, just wanting to be aware of certain things, and
Yes.
that you're not hurting, that you're not being disrespectful to them, but being respectful in that aspect.
That is so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like anybody to pat my kids on the head.
Right.
Right. I mean, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's like, oh,
Yeah.
it's like I
Right.
always like, hi, can I like am I able, like to like can I like can I touch like the child?
Right.
Like, I'm like I ask first, and
Yeah.
if they're my friends, I'm like, hey, am I able to? Sometimes my friends are like, no, like you can't do that. Okay, cool. Like I ask the parent first before I don't care if I've known you for like 10 years.
Oh
Like
my goodness.
it's their child, and
Yeah.
it, I want to be respectful of the child
Right.
because
Yeah.
we carry germs,
Yeah.
and I want to be respectful.
Yeah. No, that's so good. So really quick, starting point, and then we're gonna end it. A starting point for somebody to begin exploring improving tonality.
Yeah, so some functional ways that we can do that. Some of them we do in speech therapy and some we don't. But I would say start with tongue twisters. So you can practice reading them, saying them out loud. Reading out loud in itself is really powerful. We use that a lot in speech therapy for a lot of different medical diagnoses. But reading aloud gives you the opportunity to hear how you sound, because we don't always, oftentimes when we're talking, we're not really listening to ourselves and how we sound. Sometimes it takes someone else coming in and they're like, hey, I didn't quite understand that. I talk too fast sometimes. My current clinical supervisor keeps reminding me of that, but I don't hear it. But I know he's correct. I do talk too fast. So it's great to practice reading aloud. And I'm a big fan of audio visual feedback. By that, I mean audio recording yourself, playing it back to hear how you sounded, hear your tone, hear if you mumbled or stumbled, wherever. And the visual feedback, looking in the mirror as well while you're recording yourself.
Yes. Watching your facial expressions while you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Like trying to, if you have to present something to somebody, like they always say, practice in the mirror a few times. Watch your body language. Watch how you do things. And then sometimes even practice in front of somebody so they can give you have that feedback. Just a few things to kind of help you give that little tonality push. Watch your inflections.
Yes.
Watch your inflections. I think that's the biggest thing. I always tell some people get mad at me all the time. I'm like, I said, wait, what do you mean by that? I was like, well, your inflections really didn't match what you were saying. They're like, I gotta work on. Like, yeah, you need to work on that. Not to be mean, but because what you're trying to portray is not how you portrayed it. And I'm really big on inflections. If you're trying to tell something and your inflections aren't, your processing isn't matching what you're telling me, you're giving me two different messages. And I'm like, you really have to work on that, especially if you're trying to portray that in your business. And then another thing is, and even like nonverbal text messaging, that's huge. Your text messaging. That's text messaging. I tell my mom, like I love you, but you gotta watch how you send text messages. You be like little cutthroat your messages. But I was just kidding. I'm like, Mom, you were just kidding, but put an emoji in there, okay? Because you were just kidding.
Right. Put a little laughing emoji.
Right. Well, it seems a little rough, but now I see an emoji, I feel a lot better now,
Wow.
Even like, and again, one thing is be mindful of the age differences too. Because I think that also does play a part, millennials versus baby boomers versus Gen Z versus, I forgot one generation, but I think that also does play a part in it as well.
Wow.
If you understand the generational gaps or the generational differences, I think that does play a part in the communication styles too. Because everybody, you know, I don't think everybody will do text, and I think, you know, not everybody will understand communication like how they do nowadays. But I think understand how they grew up back then versus now. I think that'll help bridge the gap on communication.
Wow. Y'all, I sincerely mean it. This was a very powerful conversation. It's actually, I got way more out of this than I even thought I was gonna get. Like, seriously. I'm excited about this one, Aaron. Tech family, definitely drop the comments and let us know how has it benefited you. Of course, Desiree and Taylor's, I'll put a social media tag in the description if you want to go follow them and just be a part of watching their process and their career unfold. So yeah, ladies, thank y'all
Thank you so
so much with
Thank you for
much
having us.
sincerity.
Yes, it was a pleasure.
It was. The pleasure was ours. Thank you so much.
Wow. Tech family, until we see each other again, prosper.
Thank you.